Now, a great way to get more people to your website is by revamping some of the older articles you have. This is when you take an older article and add more stuff to give it new life. It's one of the things I do for my clients and has been very effective. For example, we took a particular blog post and increased it by 400 words, and that gave it a boost of 2,446% increase over 6 months. And that's just one of the smaller ones. I've seen it hit as high as 8,000% increase. Now, this is the difference between 146 visitors in 6 months, jacking it up to more than 3,700. And while the time on page did drop just a little bit, everything else got better. And all we did with that was add an extra 400 words by addressing some of the things that the article was missing the first time around. Now, the hard part is making sure you get the right content in there without it making it seem like fluff and filler. That's easy to hit a certain number of words for your article, but you also need to make sure that it's relevant to the topic, because filler and fluff really don't go very far in Google. I'm Michael with WriterSanctuary, and today I'm going to share with you 9 different methods we use to avoid filler when we're updating our content. Now, before we get started, we hit the like button, help the channel out, and for more videos about blogging, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always hit me up on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, or use the contact form on WriterSanctuary.com's website. Okay, so the first method that we use is add more definition to the post. Sometimes all this needs is to dive a little bit deeper into the content that you're creating. Are there any steps that you've left out? Is there any tidbits of information that are valuable to a reader when they're reading your post? For example, when we do WordPress tutorials, a lot of times we'll have a section after the tutorial itself on 3 other plugins that you can use that do the same thing. That way, the reader can either decide to use the tutorial plugin or pick one of the other ones that we provided. And this method alone has increased traffic quite a bit for a lot of the posts that we create. The second method that we use to get more traffic to our blog posts is that we check out the People Also Ask section in Google. For example, if I was searching WordPress contact form, I can get a series of questions like, how do I make a contact form? Where is the contact form in WordPress? Now, all these questions I can add to my article and try to answer them better than the answers that are already here. So not only am I aiming for getting into the People Also Ask section for Google, but I'm also offering a viable answer to somebody who might be looking for that question that visits my article. That was a bit convoluted, but that's how it works. Now, one of the cool things about the People Also Ask section is anytime you click one of these to expand them, Google keeps going pretty deep, so you can answer all kinds of questions that your visitors might have. Just make sure that it's relevant to the content. Otherwise, you might cause confusion when somebody decides to read your post. But the People Also Ask section, very useful when you're trying to come up with ideas. Now, the third method that we use is we try to preemptively answer some questions. So there might be a few questions that visitors might have when they're reading your tutorial or your piece of content, whatever, that may not be available in Google. Sometimes you have to use a little bit of your own imagination, but when you're creating certain types of content, it's pretty easy to see what is someone going to ask when they're reading the post. At which point we put the question into H4 and answer it as best we can. Now, this is exceptionally useful when you're doing tutorials and reviews. The third method that we use often is to include some LSI traffic. This latent semantic indexing. Now, this is lsigraph.com, and it shows all kinds of different connections of the key phrase I put in. So if I put in WordPress contact form, the LSI keywords are all these that are similar to that term that might engage an audience. Now, not all of these are going to be relevant to whatever you're trying to write, but it can give you some ideas of what else you can expand on in the article. And then on the right side of it, you got top performing content, and this can also give you some ideas as to how people are using these terms. So LSI graph can offer quite a bit of information. Now, the fifth method we use, we often go through Answer the Public. Now, I've been using Answer the Public since it was a long time ago when it first started, and it has all kinds of things that you can add to just about any blog post you can think of. These are all terms that people are using on the internet to find whatever they're looking for. So if I was doing a tutorial on how to install a contact form, I could also add in, how does WordPress contact form work? But Answer the Public can give you a wide scope of things that you might be able to add to any blog post. And it's a great source of information. In fact, I use it quite often to come up with blog post ideas. Now, the sixth step is one that I use on a daily basis, and that's doing some recon work on the competition. There's nothing wrong with taking a look to see how somebody else has their blog post set up. In fact, it could probably give you quite a few ideas on how to do it yourself. But you don't want to copy what somebody else is doing. You want to think about how you can make it better. What kind of things can you add that the other article is missing? And it also helps to browse what kind of key phrases they're using to target their audience. Because the success of any blog really boils down to search intent. How are you using your content to connect to somebody who's going through Google and looking for your information? So going through somebody else's article that's in the top 10, you can see how they are connecting to their audience. And then just spruce it up and make it your own and try to be better. The seventh thing we do, we always state and cite relevant facts. So if we were doing a WordPress tutorial, a really quick and easy one-off would be a sentence or two about how WordPress runs nearly 30 some odd percent of the internet. And then I would link back to the stats where I got that from. And the internet is full of statistical information, just make sure you're grabbing stats from legitimate sources. Because not everybody's going to share the right numbers. And different data collection agencies have different methods of how they collect the data, so it's not always going to be a one-for-one. Essentially, you want to find somebody that you can rely on and that has a high authority. Sometimes I'll even go down the rabbit hole of clicking links of different stats that people cite just to see where it originated. And if people are pulling a stat off of some random website that has no bearing on the relevancy of the topic, I'll move on and find something else. But then again, I'm a stickler when it comes to factual information. Number 8 is to try to combine different posts to create one big long one. For instance, if we were doing a tutorial on how to create a backup for WordPress, we can then expand that article into include a section on how to restore WordPress from that backup. Then we can add in 3 top plugins to do backups. And then we can add a Q&A section after that. So right there, I'm already hitting almost 2,000 words. Unfortunately, not all blog posts will be able to handle that kind of a setup, but reviews and tutorials especially are very good at adding more to it, listicles especially as well. Like if you start off with a list of 9 items, you can easily add maybe 2 or 3 every 6 months to keep making it longer and longer. Just make sure that the other points are also relevant and up to date, because you don't want to be sharing obsolete information. The more often you keep that content fresh, the happier you make Google, and the happier you make your audience. And the 9th thing that we add into the blog post to make them longer is adding in personal views and experiences. Not only does it give you a bit of a padding when you're adding content, but it also lets the audience feel like they're connecting with a real person. Now, second and first person content usually work the best on the internet. That's because it feels less robotic. So when you add in your own personal views and how you adjust to certain things inside the topic, it adds a layer of trust that people feel comfortable with. And if they like your style, a good chance they'll come back and read your blog for more stuff written by you. So there you have it. Those are 9 methods that I use to augment the blog post for myself and for my clients. Now some can go all the way up to 800% increase over 6 months, but sometimes you're going to have to rewrite the entire thing from scratch. For the most part, we're pretty successful at how much traffic we increase. So how often do you update your own content? Now I update content for clients on a weekly basis. I think we do about 4 or 5 a week, but I really don't get a lot of time to do my own. I really should, because I got a lot of stuff that's like way outdated. But I've been getting to it. I've been trying to set up a routine of where I can at least tackle 1 or 2 a week. But that's what happens when you're incredibly busy. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos about blogging, freelance writing, text broker, WordPress, or anything else I cover, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. I think it's going to do it for me today. I'll see you tonight at the live stream.